Nope.
Hello, dear listener. Thank you for joining me in this week's video. Before we begin, I just wanted to get a few things out of the way. First and foremost, be sure to stick around until the end of the video, where you can A. learn more about this author and his awesome stories, and B. since the last upload, the channel finally hit 10,000 subscribers, and I'm hosting another giveaway. Details on how to enter and win will also be in the end slate. Other than that, all you really need to know is that the following story takes place from the perspective of a young European female. I know my voice doesn't lend itself to that character, but just keep that in mind as you're listening. Alright, without any further ado, I present to you Unidentified Man Found Dead. Police suspect foul play. I was working on a local history paper for a college class, and as I was flipping through microfiche of the local newspaper, a headline caught my eye. It stood out against the endless stories about some big storm. Unidentified man found dead. Police suspect foul play. I skimmed the article. They didn't have a lot of details, but apparently he was found in the same area I used to live. I closed my eyes, thinking. Didn't I remember that storm? Hazy memories started to fit together in my mind. It had been a weird few days, I remembered that. Wait, I saw a man outside the house back then, didn't I? Could it have been him? I strained my mind, trying to remember. Didn't I have to sit down for a police sketch at some point? It was right before we moved, too. And then, it all came rushing back to me. I was sitting in front of the fireplace in our little farmhouse in an isolated part of a deep fjord. The wind howling outside, the rain drumming on the windows, and the many little streams that had just appeared in the last little while gurgling outside. The storm was a bad one. When it rained like that, it was like the whole mountain behind us came alive with water. It was everywhere. Millions of little streams would gather into large flows, then hurl themselves over steep rock face in spectacular waterfalls. My parents were in the kitchen, talking in low voices. I assumed they were fighting again. They usually were when they were whispering. They weren't very good at hiding things from me. "And that little girl needs friends," my mom let slip in a louder voice. My father hushed her, and then they returned to the normal whispers, just low enough that I could make out the words. I didn't need to. I knew that fight. My mom thought the little farmhouse in the forest in the fjord was too isolated for my social development. My dad thought the fresh air, the nature, and the physical activity would do me good. So they fought. I immersed myself in the book I was reading and tried to ignore them. A new hour started, and the radio switched to the news. "The storm is hitting small coastal communities hard. We have reports of large landslides down the fjord. The slides have washed out the road, likely isolating the small community. The cleanup work will not start until the storm has passed. In other news..." "Did you hear that, John?" My mother's voice rose again. "Did you hear that? The goddamn road is gone! We're stuck here until they bother fixing it." She practically yelled that last part. I couldn't make out my father's answer, but it was probably something about keeping her voice down so I wouldn't hear, because the rest of the conversation became nothing more than a jumbled mess of tense exchanges. The wind howled, drowning out any sound of the conversation in the kitchen. The sky darkened even further as the sun set, and I moved closer to the fire. Delightful chills ran down my spine as I finished a particularly scary story in the horror collection I was reading. I stared into the flames, enjoying the thrill. Something scratched on the wall. I jumped, heart pounding. Something was scratching at the far wall of the house, the one that faced the woods. Monsters, werewolves. A cry for help rose in my throat, but I swallowed it at the last second. I didn't need another talk about how the horror stories were too scary for me. It was probably just a branch that had broken off of a tree. I tried to calm myself down, reminding myself that my parents were in the kitchen, even if I couldn't hear them talk. Just a branch. The wind howled again with an eerily human quality. I shuddered and put away the book. Maybe my parents were right. Maybe I should stop reading all these horror stories. At least they were in the next room. I wasn't alone. But they do sleep all the way at the other end of the hallway, said an unfriendly voice in my head. Stupid me. Why did I have to read those damn stories? A muffled thud sounded against the back wall, and I jumped in my chair, heart beating in my throat. Okay, I thought, branches don't do that. Had the wind gotten strong enough to lift logs? Maybe, I told myself. Probably. I considered tiptoeing over to the little window that faced the forest to peek through the gap in the closed curtains. The idea immediately brought to mind an image of a face pressed against the window. That stupid, stupid book. There was a story there of a man who sees the ghost of an old sailor peering through his little window. I didn't know then that the illustration to that story would haunt me for years, but it did. At the time, it just stopped me from looking out of the window as surely as if I had been shackled to the chair. I pulled my feet up, vaguely disturbed by the thought of someone grabbing me. I quickly swore to never read another scary story. Another far too human howl from the wind and a low gurgling sound. The wind and a stream, obviously. I almost jumped out of my chair when the kitchen door opened. My dad entered, chuckling at me, and saying something about children and horror stories. Then he shooed me off to bed. I brushed my teeth and walked with some trepidation down the hallway, past the front door and into my bedroom. I couldn't shake the image of the fisherman with his face pressed against the window. I made sure the curtains were completely closed, leaving no little openings for someone to peek through, and jumped into my bed, keeping my ankles out of reach from anything hiding under it. Then I curled up under my duvet, making sure that not a single part of me was uncovered. No limbs hanging off the edge, nothing for a monster to grab. My dad came in, kissed me goodnight, and turned off the lights. A few uneasy twists and turns in the bed, and I drifted off to sleep. I awoke with a start, with no idea why, or how long it was until morning. The dark room filled me with dread, and I repeated my vow to never read horror stories again. The wind was still howling, not helping my predicament. My heart was beating a steady tattoo in my chest, and I pulled the covers up to my nose. And then I heard it. Footsteps. Right outside. I sat up, looking around wildly. Footsteps? No, I am imagining things. It's the wind. Just the wind. I turned on the light, weighing my options. Crashing thunder shook the little house, and I knew I had to get my parents. I was a little too old now, but there was nothing else to do. I took a deep breath, jumped across the room as far away from the dark abyss beneath the bed as possible, and hurried down the hallway. I paused for a moment, hesitating to pass the front door. The front door that had the little window in it. The window like the one in the story, with the face, with the empty eyes just staring inside. My heart beat faster. I took a deep breath, turned on the light, and moved past the door, vowing not to look. I looked, and my world froze. There, in the little window, lit up by the light in the hallway, was a face. A man. Wild-eyed, wet hair plastered down the sides of his face, a strange sneer on his lips, staring back at me. Like a deer caught in the headlights, I just stood there. And then the world unfroze, and I screamed. I hollered myself hoarse. Footsteps rushed towards me as I screamed and screamed and screamed. There's a man. He's there, out there. But there was nothing but darkness in the window. "Aw, honey, there's nothing there." "No, he was there!" I started sobbing. "Shh, honey, it's just the storm. It's scary, I know." "No," I sobbed. "Someone was there." My mother bent down, holding my shoulder. "It's okay, sweetie. Daddy will check if there's something outside. Don't worry." My dad got up and walked to the door. He looked out of the window and went to open the door. The moment he pushed down on the handle, the door slammed open. A gust of wind brought the rain all the way into the house, and I was dripping in a second. I screamed again at the sheer shock of the natural force out there. My dad, ever my hero, poked his head outside and looked around. He jerked back and slammed the door closed. When he turned back, he was pale as a ghost. Nothing there," he choked out, doing little to reassure me. "Nothing at all." "Daddy, I saw a man." "Sweetheart, there's nothing there." He tried again in a calmer voice, locking the door behind him. "But know what? I think you should spend the night with Mommy and Daddy." "Why did you lock the door?" I asked suspiciously. Scared? My dad was never scared. What was happening? I cried even harder. I heard him take a deep breath, saying, "Nobody is out there, sweetie. I told you so." But then, so that I wouldn't understand, he switched to English, speaking quickly in a low, tense voice. I had my head buried in my mother's shoulder, so I couldn't see their expressions, but I noticed my mother's sharp intake of breath. "What?" I sobbed. "What is it?" "Oh, nothing, sweetie. Just something wrong in the garden. You know, the water." He trailed off. Another tense exchange in English. "Okay, hon. Right now, you and me are going to bed, and Daddy will call some people about what's wrong in the garden." "What's wrong in the garden?" I asked suspiciously. "The man is still there, right? He is. I know it. No, 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 baby. Nothing serious. Come here. We'll sleep in the big bed together tonight. Won't that be fun? I scowled at her, furiously wiping away the tears in my eyes. I knew they were hiding something. I knew it. She led me into the living room, closing the kitchen door behind us. I could hear my dad talking over the phone. Days? No, we can't wait for days. There's a... John! My mom yelled. We can hear you! He lowered his voice, and the rest of the conversation was lost to me. The storm raged for another 3 days. The 3 most boring days of my life. For some reason, my parents decided to board up the windows so I couldn't even see outside. They said something about the wind. On top of that, they didn't allow me to go outside at all, blaming the rain. I was annoyed. My whole life, I had been told there is no such thing as bad weather, only bad clothes, and was immediately sent outside to play. But now that I wanted to, I was stuck inside. They wouldn't even let me listen to the radio. I spent my days reading, while my mother paced up and down the living room, and my father cleaned his shotgun. 3 days of this. I thought I would go crazy. I didn't even notice the wind dying down, but then, on the morning of the 4th day, I heard a new sound. It was far away, but it sounded like it was slowly approaching. A rhythmic succession of rapid thudding sounds, just like a flag flapping in strong wind. I frowned. The flag wasn't up. Mom? I yelled. What's that sound? Sound? She said. I can't hear. Oh, that's a helicopter. Oh, thank the Lord. They're coming for us, John. Who is? Oh, well, the police, sweetie. Because of, well, the road. We get to ride in a helicopter? I asked. We'll see, honey. A couple more hours inside the house, and then I really did get to ride in a helicopter. I frowned as I walked across our lawn. The police had put stuff everywhere, and a huge tarp covered part of the grass. They had me sit down with a sketch artist to draw the man I had seen. They said someone was missing, and that maybe the man I had seen was that person. I remember my parents telling me not to be afraid, not to worry, and I didn't. Never did. It's amazing what you can convince a child of. I leaned back in my chair. The memory had left a bad taste in my mouth. How had I never questioned these events? I made my way through the newspapers. The headlines kept getting worse as the details of the case became known to the press. Unidentified male victim found decapitated. Head of murder victim still not found. No leads on murder. Storm washed away evidence. I shuddered as the sketch of the man I had seen in the window rolled over the screen. Eyewitness rendering of man likely connected to murder case. And then the headline hit me like a punch in the gut. Family trapped for 3 days due to storm. Decapitated corpse in their garden. Murderer still on the loose. Apparently, after discovering the victim's body, The family had been informed by the police that it would be days before anyone could get out there. A mudslide had washed out the road, and the winds were too strong for a helicopter. For 3 days they had waited, while a decapitated corpse decayed on their lawn. Knowing the murderer must have been somewhere in the woods, just as stuck as they were. Ice ran down my spine as the truth sunk in. That family was my family. A quick Google search and I had all the details of the case. They never found the man in the sketch. The man I saw was the murderer or the murdered. They had never found the head. They had never even identified the victim. And, as you may have guessed, they never found the killer. All they knew was that 2 men had made it through the storm, through the woods, up or down the steep hills surrounding our house. And once they were practically at our doorstep, one had cut off the head of the other, taken it with him, and disappeared forever. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this week's story. If you did, be sure to smack that like button down below, and subscribe for future videos if you haven't done so already. As promised in the intro, here is some more info on the author if you wish to learn more. If you're thinking about following P. Oxford, aka Pocket Oxford Writes, be sure to follow the links in the description below. Apparently, if you get in on it quick enough, you can receive a free copy of a future anthology they'll be featured in. All you have to do is sign up using the link on their Facebook page. Again, link in the description below. And on to the giveaway. Like I mentioned, the channel finally hit 10,000 subscribers. So, at the risk of, getting all caught up in my feels, thank you. Thank you to everybody who helped me get this far. And I hope you stay with me as the channel continues to grow. But as a way to say thank you, I want to give away some t-shirts. Because as a wise man once said, we are getting t-shirts, and girls love t-shirts. Right? You can enter to win in 4 easy steps. Step 1, have an Instagram account. Step 2, follow me on Instagram at Nope2Creepy, link in the description below. I want you to like the picture where I say thank you for 10,000 subs, as shown on screen right now. And last but not least, I want you to leave a comment on that picture. All you have to say is one of the following: Team Werewolf, Team Vampire, Team Clowntown, or Team Witchcraft. I'll be picking 3 winners at random to receive t-shirts. Good luck to everybody who decides to enter. Again, everybody, thank you for listening, and until next time, stay safe out there. I'll be seeing you in the next video.